Oh, Marcus hit some crazy shots here in this first quarter.
A true holy-S moment as I went to bed last night thinking Malcolm Brogdon was gone and woke up finding out that the longest-tenured Celtic on the roster is headed to Memphis. Marcus Smart, no longer a member of the Green after a day of chaos that started with reports of a 3-team trade that would net the Celtics big man Kristaps Porzingis, but cost, among other things, Malcolm Brogdon. However, that deal fell apart around 10:30 last night when the Clippers, who were the third team in that original trade, they didn't like something they saw in Malcolm Brogdon's injury status, and then the whole thing just blew up. But just before the stroke of midnight, a deal was struck. The Memphis Grizzlies would get Marcus Smart. The Wizards would get Tyus Jones, Danilo Gallinari, Mike Muscala, and the Celtics' number 35 pick in this year's draft. And the Celtics will get Kristaps Porzingis, the number 25 pick in tonight's draft, and the 2024 Warriors first-round pick, which is top 4 protected. The 3-team deal had to happen before midnight because that was the deadline for Porzingis to opt in to his $36 million player option for next season. With the deal completed, Porzingis did opt in, and speculation is that there's an understanding that Porzingis will be extended by the Celtics. Here's Wojnarowski on how things got done.
The Celtics were going to send Malcolm Brogdon to the Clippers. And when they just couldn't get that deal finalized, they pivoted. And Washington started to talk again with Memphis. There had been some conversations, and Marcus Smart had been a player the Grizzlies had targeted for obvious reasons. You see how he fits with that Grizzlies roster. Bringing in his veteran toughness.
And the other thing, too, is that with John Morant out for 25 games, they could really use him right away. But first, let's start with what the Celtics got in Kristaps Porzingis. First of all, he's only 27, which is insane because it seems like he's been in the league forever. I had to double-check that just to make sure. 7'3", and despite having a track record of injuries that have kept him off the court for chunks of his career, he had the best season of his career last year in Washington, averaging a career-high 23.2 points to go along with 8.5 rebounds, 2.7 assists, and 1.5 blocks in 65 games. 65 games, also the most he's played in a season. I'll tell you this, our friend Kevin O'Connor from The Ringer, he loves him some Kristaps Porzingis. He broke down some of the numbers from last season where, I mean, and they do stand out. He was 4th in the league in defending the pick and roll, which was the best. And he was also the best post scorer in the league, even ahead of like Jokic and Embiid. And if you didn't realize this about his game, Porzingis is now a 40% three-point shooter, which, let's be honest, is pretty impressive for a guy who's 7'3".
Just what we need here.
Well,
Somebody else to put up
that's
threes.
okay. But and then when I looked at his games played per season, it's not great, but it's also not awful. As I mentioned, last year he played a career-high 65 games. The year before it was 51, and then you go back year by year, 43 games, 57, and then 48. And maybe I'm just used to how unavailable Rob Williams and Al Horford have been, and I'm being beaten into submission and my bar is lowered. But looking at those numbers, like that doesn't really seem to stink to me. That just is more like, hey, man, if you've got those 3 guys and you can kind of hopefully not have them all be injured at the same time, then maybe, just maybe, you could piece something together.
All right, so my question is, Porzingis has started almost every game he's played in the NBA. What is the Celtics starting 5?
He's a starter. Porzingis is a starter.
Well, no, not necessarily.
Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, and Kristaps Porzingis.
Okay, so you're not starting White or Williams.
I just said White. Yeah. White's your starting. He's your starting.
All right, go ahead.
Guard. White, Tatum, Jaylen, Al Horford, Kristaps Porzingis.
Who's your point guard?
White.
See, I don't think they'll do that.
See, Derek White's absolutely your point guard.
No, Brogdon's your point guard.
He's not your starting point guard.
I think Brogdon's your starting point guard.
I think you have a Malcolm Brogdon problem right now.
No,
because he was supposed to be on his way out of town, and I'm sure the NBA players are always thrilled when that happens.
Right.
Well, that's, but I agree with you. I think White starts, but I think it's Brogdon, White, Brown, Tatum, Williams.
You think,
and then I think that
Robert or Grant, which one?
Robert Williams.
Okay,
and then you
over
have
Porzingis,
or you can switch the 2 of them out.
You might have to just because of injuries.
Because I think Horford might be gone or a buyout or something, because they obviously got Porzingis because they feel Horford's had it. He didn't shoot well last season, if I'm not mistaken. So the talk is that Brogdon's your starting point guard.
See, I've not heard that anywhere.
Well, not only is it on the depth chart for ESPN as Brogdon being your starter, it's also in the write-up on ESPN when they're breaking down the trade, which is no shortage of words.
I just think Derek White has proven, and it makes, and we'll get into the next break. We'll get into what this means with Marcus Smart gone, and I'll give my opinion on really what I've kind of thought about this all morning long, and I'm torn on a few things, but I'm leaning one way. But the one thing that you have learned is that Derek White's ready to be the starting point guard for this team. Defensively, offensively, it makes getting rid of Marcus Smart a lot easier. It softens the blow. And I just think that he was underused. And it's just because of the logjam. There were so many great players. And there's also the thing about Brogdon, and you're right. I mean, it is weird after something like this. Like, hey, man, I know we tried to trade you, but we love you. The one thing you could say about it is he's getting crapped on for some strange reason over the last couple of weeks, and it's probably just because of the injury that he was playing with in the playoffs. That guy was unbelievable this year. He was the sixth man of the year. So if you've got him and Derek White together, you've got a pretty damn good core right there or at least like a 1-2 tandem when it comes to your point guard position.
Here's what the ESPN says: Joe Mazzulla and his coaching staff already have plenty of options. Brown and Tatum are givens, while Derek White belongs in that category as well. Horford's versatile defense makes him a better choice than Porzingis on most nights, meaning Mazzulla might have to choose between Porzingis, Brogdon, and Robert Williams for the fifth spot.
I think that Porzingis is your starter. Matter of fact, I mean, if you're putting up numbers like that, he better be your starter. I'd put him in over Rob Williams.
They're going to have to rest him
an
awful lot. They're going to, I mean.
Well, who needs to rest more, him or Robert Williams? You know what I mean? It's like Porzingis.
No, him and Robert Williams need to probably rest the same amount.
It's a lot of resting.
Yeah. I didn't say Robert Williams didn't have to rest. I'm just saying Porzingis is going to have to rest too.
As I said, Fred,
he doesn't play.
The bar is so low on games played when it comes to Celtics big men that I saw everyone's like, oh, Porzingis always injured. I'm looking, I was like, dude, that's not bad. I'll take 45 games and healthy in the playoffs.
Porzingis starts 50 games. Robert Williams starts the other 32. That's the way it'll work.
And then Al Horford just kind of shows up every once in a while and does the old man check-in.
Yeah, what old man check-in? Remember hot man check-in. What hot man check-in short and sexy.
All right, when we get back, we've got, first of all, there was one NBA insider who called this yesterday afternoon, and he makes a good case as to why he thinks this is going to work. And we'll get in. This is a take your calls morning as well. I mean, there is no player on this Celtics team in the past, I mean, since Paul Pierce has gone, that's been more polarizing than Marcus Smart.
Oh, I think it's a good thing they got rid of him.
Well, we'll get into it after the break because there's a lot of stuff to talk about with this one.
Yeah, I think that he won over some of the people that cover the team, and but I think that as fans who have no skin in the game. I think that it's a positive. Also, I saw him shooting threes before a game, and I was better than him at shooting threes.
He's got a good 3-point percentage.
I know, but I saw him before a game, and he